With the Doab under their control, the Afghans quickly established their posts. They now focused on establishing supply lines for their large army. Ahmad Shah Abdali had returned home by summer in his previous campaigns. The news of a Maratha army marching from the south terrified Najib Khan Rohilla. He convinced Abdali to not travel back to Afghanistan this summer. He promised to manage the supplies and pay for all the expenses of the Afghan army. Upon Najib's insistence, Abdali cancelled his plan to return to Kandahar in the summer. Najib Khan paid him 10 lakh rupees as an advance. Abdali had initially set up a large camp at Kol Jaleshwar. Later, due to the scarcity of water during the summer, he relocated to Anup Shahar on the banks of the river Ganga, 50 miles northeast of Aligarh. As Sadashiv Rao inched closer to Delhi, the incoming letters from the north gave him an idea of the growing threats of the Afghans. On 30th of May 1760, Sadashiv Rao arrived at Gwalior. The journey was slow, possibly due to the presence of heavy cannons and artillery. Large number of troops, each led by their generals, non-combatant workers and pilgrims with the army, also slowed down the march. In those days, travel in general was insecure. Common people took pilgrimages under the indirect protection of the travelling army. In the north, the Marathas had their men like Govindpant Bundele, Gopal Rao Barve, Krishna Rao Kale and Bapuji Hingne, who knew the northern regions and its nobles very well. Sadashiv Rao kept them updated on his plans. He also had constant requests for them, mostly about food, fodder, supplies and money. Sadashiv Rao started with 10 lakh rupee advance from the treasury when he left from Paddur. There was a constant need for large sums of cash to pay salaries of the army, as well as to manage provisions and supplies for such a great number of travellers. He had taken a loan from Krishnaji Vishwanath, a lender in Burhanpur, worth Rs 1,22,000. Now at Gwalior, he requested another loan from Govind Shamraj. During his travel, Sadashiv Rao was regularly requesting his northern envoys to secure their outposts and ride back with the intel on the movements of the enemy. He also reminded them to look for good weapons, suitable recruits for the army, and boats to build pontoon bridges across the river. He was constantly attempting to search for allies which would give him a numerical superiority over his opponent's army. This would then force Abdali to propose for a peace, giving Sadashiv Rao advantage for a subsequent treaty. Accordingly, he sent letters to Nawab Shuja-ud-daula of Awadh, Kamaluddin Khan Babi of Gujarat, all the Hindu lords in Bundelkhand, Bijay Singh and Madho Singh in Rajputana, and also other Rajput landlords on the banks of Yamuna. He sent his envoys when the letters were unanswered, but there was no positive response from any of them barring Shuja-ud-daula, who was still uncertain over his choice. On 8th June, Sadashiv Rao crossed the Chambal river and reached Dholpur. On receiving the news, Malhar Rao Holkar requested Sadashiv Rao to not advance any further and instead send all his troops as reinforcements to the Shinde and the Holkar army. Sadashiv Rao replied, "The enemy's strength has multiplied, you and I cannot defeat them unless we are all together." Sadashiv Rao asked Malhar Rao Holkar and Jankoji Shinde to join the main army with their battalions at the Muchakund Tirth. Muchakund Tirth is a holy temple and lies east of Dholpur. This place holds religious importance in Hinduism. There was a solar eclipse on 30th of June, therefore everyone performed religious rites at this halt. On 18th June, Jankoji and Malhar Rao met Sadashiv Rao with their troops. For a week or two, Malhar Rao and Sadashiv Rao planned their further moves. This was also the monsoon season. The arriving rains had flooded the Gambhir river. This cost the Maratha army precious time. Malhar Rao Holkar and his Diwan Gangadhar Chandrachud and Ramaji Ananta Dabholkar, a Shinde loyalist, advised Sadashiv Rao to cross the Yamuna near Etawah and enter the Doab, then move on to the provinces of Shuja-ud-daula to convince him to join the Marathas. Even if he refuses to join, the Maratha army would have at least stationed themselves between the two groups of the Afghan armies. The main camp in the north was led by Abdali, and a second military that had travelled south with Jahan Khan and Najib Khan Rohilla to influence Shuja-ud-daula. Their next advice was to influence the warlords in the Doab to rally for Maratha cause, with the help of Gopal Rao Barve and Govindpant Bundele, who were already stationed in the Doab. Sadashiv Rao readily accepted the proposal, but destiny had other plans. The river Gambhir showed no signs of settling currents. Since the Gambhir had such heavy currents, it was almost impossible to cross the Yamuna river, having a larger riverbed near Etawah with all this entourage. The heavy downpour also made the Maratha army halt on the banks of the Gambhir river, probably at a Mughal sarai near Shala or Buchakapura. It took about a month for the river currents to settle down. In retrospection, it's puzzling to understand what kept Sadashivurao from crossing into the Doab even after he crossed the Gambhir, since multiple contemporary records mention his readiness to enter the Doab. If the Maratha army would have managed to cross the Yamuna river and enter the Doab, perhaps would have changed the outcome of the war. There are no ifs and buts in history. There are only facts to live with. Up north, Abdali by now had brought the entire Doab under his control within a month and moved his camp from Anup Shahar back to Kol Jaleshwar. His army was spread over 50 miles in and around Kol Jaleshwar. He had about 30,000 troops in his camp, while his chiefs Najib Khan Rohilla and Jahan Khan had about 20,000 troops with them. Abdali by now had his supply line established from Najib Khan's Rohilkhand, supplying him the grains and provisions for his army. Finally, after a month, on 14th of July, Sadashivurao reached Agra. He was now entering the kingdom of Surajmal Jat. The Jats had their dominion over Delhi, Mathura and Agra. Their friendship was crucial for the Marathas. Hence, Sadashivurao strongly warned his army not to cause any inconvenience to the Jats. Earlier, Abdali had captured the fort of Ramgarh, which belonged to the Jats, and displaced them from the Doab. This led to Raja Surajmal, the Jat king, joining the Marathas with determination. It was necessary for the Marathas to protect this ally. Even before Abdali entered Hindustan, Najib Khan Rohilla was constantly chasing the Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-daula, to join him against the Marathas. Shuja-ud-daula was a Shia Muslim. He despised the Sunni Najib Khan Rohilla. But Najib Khan Rohilla pursued to convince him with the thought that these Marathas have their eyes set on the Hindu shrines in your kingdom. They'll never let you rule. Join me, together we'll remove these infidel Marathas from the north. Shuja-ud-daula was at Mehdi Ghat on the banks of the Ganga river. Jahan Khan and Najib Khan, who had gone to convince Shuja-ud-daula, finally succeeded. Najib's religious appeal convinced Shuja-ud-daula to side with the Afghans. His ministers and even his mother was not on board with his decision. Perhaps if Sadashivurao had been able to cross the Yamuna in time, Shuja would have sided with the Marathas. Thus, Shuja-ud-daula and his army under the command of his two Gosai chiefs, Anup Gir and Umrao Gir, joined Najib Khan Rohilla with about 4,000 men and 20 cannons. With the addition of Shuja-ud-daula, Najib Khan managed to shift the scales in the favor of his party. With the Yamuna river blocking their way, Sadashivurao eventually gave up the plan to enter the Doab. He now decided to continue travelling up north to Delhi. Delhi was under the control of one Yaqub Ali Khan, the cousin of Abdali's Wazir Shah Ali Khan. Marathas continued to travel on the west bank of the Yamuna river and decided to attack Delhi. Both Surajmal Jat and the Wazir Imadul Mulk were on board with Sadashivurao's new plan. Surajmal Jat wanted the control of Delhi for himself, while Imadul Mulk wanted to be the Wazir again. Since Imadul Mulk had assassinated the previous Mughal emperor, the Marathas were now against his idea. Balwantrao Mehendale, a trusted aide of Sadashivurao, suggested him to make Naro Shankar as the next Wazir. Sadashivurao postponed his appointment and decided to capture Delhi first. Perhaps he wanted to keep the post of Wazir vacant to lure Shuja-ud-daula. On 17th July 1760, Sadashivurao arrived at Mathura. There he was informed that the Rajputs are in open rebellion supporting the Afghans. Rajput king Madho Singh had double-crossed the Marathas. Initially being neutral and writing that we will not join any party until the Maratha-Afghan conflict is settled, he had now decided to help the invader, Ahmad Shah Abdali. From Mathura, Sadashivurao sent troops to Delhi under the leadership of Mallarrao Holkar, Jankoji Shinde and Balwantrao Mehendale. According to the Maratha spies, there were not many men guarding the fort of Delhi. It was decided that a small group would enter the fort and then open the gates for the rest of the army to follow. On 22nd of July, the Maratha vanguard arrived at Delhi. They easily captured the city and now planned for the fort. The Marathas had some Pindari troops in their army. As soon as they breached an entry into the fort, the Pindaris set fire to some houses inside the fort and started a loot. This led to chaos, which alerted the Afghan soldiers who were manning the watchtowers. They opened fire. The Marathas had to retreat and start preparations for a siege. On 29th of July, Sadashivurao reached Delhi. He was accompanied by the artillery chief Ibrahim Khan Gardi. The fort at Delhi at this time was guarded by a small detachment of about 1,000 Pathans led by Yaqub Ali Khan. The Afghans had established control over this fort after their victory at the Battle of Buradi Ghat. The city and the fort were handed over by Abdali to his Wazir Shah Ali Khan, who had posted his cousin Yaqub Ali Khan on the duty. Ibrahim Khan Ghardi's focused artillery attack made little of Delhi's defense. As soon as the Asad bastion collapsed, the Afghans surrendered. Yaqub Ali Khan handed over the fort to the Marathas. Thus, on 2nd August 1760, the Marathas conquered the Red Fort of Delhi. This was one of the decisive moments in their journey up north. A waving saffron flag on the Red Fort was perhaps Abdali's worst nightmare. The only thing that separated these two large armies was the overflowing Yamuna. As if the outcome of the war was hidden deep somewhere in the dark stream of this flowing river. The entire north had now set its eyes upon who manages to cross over.